Dr. Washburn. I'm going to be doing my second talk on why vaccines are important, so just kind of reiterating my presentation that I turned in. So why vaccines are important. Turn this so you can see me. What is a vaccine per se? A vaccine is a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular disease. So immunity is a way to prevent the body from getting a disease after it's already been introduced to the antigen or the foreign invader, the foreign body kind of thing. The body is given the antigens so that our body can make proteins called antibodies that fight off these antigens. Some advanced examples of vaccines are the MMR vaccine, varicella, that's the chickenpox, your tetanus, your flu, your HPV, and your hepatitis B. Some vaccines do have the actual disease in it, but it's weakened to the extent that it doesn't cause the disease in and of itself. Much like if you get the flu shot does have a strand of the flu in it, but it doesn't make you sick. You might present with symptoms after it, like you might present with like body aches and maybe like cold symptoms, but that's just your body trying to make the antigens that will fight off the flu come if your body does get the flu. A vaccine is a safer substitute for a child's first exposure to a disease. Due to the discovering of vaccines and immunizations themselves, scientists have been able to eradicate diseases like polio, smallpox, which used to be a top killer of young children and adults alike, because you didn't come back from having polio or smallpox, you just died from it, due to there being no type of way to prevent these diseases. There are 4 different types of immunity. There's 2 main types, is active and passive immunity. Active immunity is exposure to the disease that triggers the immune system to produce the antibodies. So natural immunity is one of the 4. Infection comes from the actual disease, so the body creates antibodies. That's when you get sick. You don't get a vaccine or anything. You get sick, so your body makes the antibodies. So like if you get, let's say, the chickenpox, your body makes the antibodies for the chickenpox. You're not going to get it again. You may get, what's it called? Never mind. You may get something later in life, but it's just from having the chickenpox. You have vaccine-induced immunity, which is the introduction of a weakened form of the disease through a vaccine, much like the flu vaccine, your varicella, which is your chickenpox. The active immunity is long-lasting. For passive immunity, that's the other category, is when a person is given antibodies to a disease rather than producing their own through their own immune system. So natural passive, that's the third one. A newborn baby acquires immunity from the placenta of the mother. That one I think just speaks for itself. And then you have acquired passive, which is the process of obtaining immunoglobulins from antibody-containing blood, immediate protection, and that's things like hepatitis B, your Hep A, and your Hep C. Immunity only lasts a few weeks or a few months, and that's why if you have things like Hep C or Hep B, you have multiple vaccines and multiple injections that you have to get for that. Edward Jenner, in 1796, he was the English physician who contributed to the development of the smallpox vaccine. The vaccine itself was created when Jenner took pus from a milkmaid that had cowpox and inserted it into the cut of an arm of a child. Several days later, Jenner exposed the boy to smallpox, and he found him to be immune to it. Jenner called this new method vaccination after the Latin word for cow, which is vacca. Why do we need vaccines, per se? And right now, I know in this time, we don't have a vaccine for the coronavirus because we've never had this strand around, but like, if you don't know, coronavirus has been around forever. It's one of the main reasons for a common cold is coronavirus, so we just don't have a vaccine for this strain, so this is why we need vaccines for reasons like this. They protect the children and elderly, and the elderly are one of the main people who are being affected by the coronavirus because it does attack those who are already immunocompromised, those with health defects, things like asthma, COPD, things like that. And most of the time, the elderly are already those immunocompromised. Some of those they have cancer, they're going through chemo, they're going through radiation, which is already compromising the body as a whole. Adults' immune systems are generally stronger, which means that young children and the elderly are more susceptible to dangerous infections. That's why kids get sick so fast, because none of them have the immune systems like you and I do. So we bypass the risk with vaccines. They are the most effective health intervention Vaccines prevent over 2 to 3 million deaths worldwide every year. That's why, as much as people hate to get the flu vaccine, and people do die from the flu every day, it has decreased because people are getting the flu vaccine. They help protect the vulnerable. If enough of a population is vaccinated, infections can't spread from person to person, which means that everyone has a high level of protection, even for those who don't have immunity, which is known as herd immunity, which is kind of what quarantine is doing. We're keeping those who can't protect themselves from getting sick. That's why we're all staying inside. That's why we're cleaning, we're washing our hands even more, although we should have been beforehand. We're doing things like making sure we're covering our mouths, we cough in our arms, we cough into our shirts, things like that. This is important for those who can't get vaccinated due to the allergies, like allergies to the medicine. People who are allergic to eggs, they can't get the flu vaccine. Being unresponsive, so some people just don't respond to the vaccines at all, and that can prove to be difficult because they're easy infected by them, or health conditions that prevent them from getting them. So there are certain medical reasons why people can't get vaccines, like many children who have underlying health issues can't get vaccines. So they don't get them, and that's why they rely on the herd immunity to fix it. There are many different types of vaccines. You have oral vaccines. Those are making immunization easier because there's no syringes. Those are things like OPV and rotavirus. You have your intramuscular vaccines that administers the vaccines directly into the muscle, so your Tdap and your hepatitis B. Your sub-Q vaccines administers the vaccines into the sublayer above the muscle and below the skin. So that's things like your measles and your TB test. And then you have your intranasal, which can be like the flu vaccine. There are many myths that surround vaccines, many of them being vaccines have harmful substances in them. No, vaccines have ingredients that allow the product to be safely administered. Any substance can be harmful in significantly high doses, even water. So like if you drink way too much water, you can overload your body system. So anything in a higher amount is bad. Vaccines contain an even lower doses of the actual disease itself. Vaccines can cause autism and sudden infant death syndrome. Vaccines are very safe. There are a few, like Emma from my speech class, there are a few who do in turn have problems from it, like she lost her hearing from the MMR vaccine. Things like that can happen. There's no way for us to predict them. And that's why if something like that happens, there's tons of research that goes into it most of the time. Most reactions are usually temporary and minor, such as a fever or sore arm. So things with like your flu vaccine, you're going to have a sore arm for a few days. You may produce a fever afterwards because it's your body trying to make the antibodies for it. You're more likely to be seriously injured by a vaccine-preventable disease itself. A child can get a disease from a vaccine. A vaccine causing complete disease would be extremely unlikely. Most vaccines are inactivated or killed, and it isn't possible to contract the disease from the vaccine. So, thank you.